But there is not one bit of evidence that supports that as family members, calling your loved one names is helpful. And so, we just really try to stay away from that language, and even words like the word codependency, which was created by an author. And it's not a DSM, it's not a diagnosis. Some people go into certain circles or even talk to certain people, and they're like, they come to me and they're in tears and they're like, I'm just codependent. I'm like, no, you're just a mama who loves your child, and that is totally normal and natural. And I think there's certain work that can be done when people are over enmeshed, and that can be problematic. But I think it's perfectly normal for mothers to feel their hearts torn apart when their loved ones are struggling and then suffering. And we just don't label that. We like to flip the script on the word enabling and redefine that. How are we going to enable life? How are we going to enable recovery? And let's empower our loved ones. Do these decisions support continued use, or do they support recovery? And so we try to redefine some of that language, because I have found that oftentimes they're misused. For example, back when the words, let me try to rephrase this. 80 years ago, we lived in a culture where people were drinking alcohol, and you had 30 years to right the ship, and there wasn't this sense of acuity and urgency like there is in the fentanyl world that we live in. We don't have time. We don't have 30 years. And for some people, they don't even have months. And so what we're trying to do is remove any barrier necessary for a family to get immediate help today. And while we do love support groups and love the idea of community, sometimes it takes a while to get these messages across, which is why we do the quick hitting educational workshops and the one-on-one support, because we do not want parents or partners to feel ill-equipped for very long. Does that make sense?
Oh gosh, well, there's an urgency for sure, and we got to move things along. And the drug war is failing miserably, and it's time for a new approach for sure.
Well, and unfortunately, in certain, and again, I always say, like, these groups, these rooms are only as good as the people that are leading those rooms, and they're human beings doing the very best they can. And at the same time, many are still taking an abstinence-based approach to, recovery. And we know that the gold standard for treatment for opiate use disorder is Suboxone. We also know that there are other medications like methadone and Vivitrol that help people a lot. And what we don't need to do is add more shame onto that by saying, you're not really sober if you're on medications, or,
one drug for another.
Exactly. And so that's one of the things that our community really feels so positive about, is the fact that when they come into our community, if their person's on Suboxone, they're not going to be shamed because of that. Or if they are taking them to the methadone clinic every day and that's keeping their loved one alive, we're going to support that, right? We're going to say that is a win and good for you, rather than, well, it's a stopgap, and, like, they're not really abstinent, because typically when you hear those messages, then you want to force that idea, right? So our beliefs about substance use are transferred to our loved ones. The energy we put out is felt by our loved ones. And so when we change our energy, to being compassionate and kind and accepting and non-judgmental, and it's that thing of like, Mom, I think I want to go to the methadone clinic. And the difference is, on one extreme might be, are you kidding me? Like, you're just going to get addicted to that. It's just trading one drug for another, versus, wow, that's a huge step to want to get some help. What do you need from me in order to support that, or to feel supported in that decision? And there are a lot of people that have gotten into amazing, recovery as a result of those medications, right? And for some people, it's the only thing that worked and has worked for them. And so, we have a lot of people come in that do practice abstinence or want to be abstinent. And we'll find them a treatment center that supports that. And we have a whole lot of people using opiates where going to detox and coming out without being on any type of medication will put them at an 8 times greater risk for death.